So we'll turn in a moment to Musaf. But I want to share with you an insight I had this summer about the meaning of life. I'll connect it up to our face-to-face discussion in a few minutes. But for most of my life, if you asked me what gives life meaning, I'd have said making a difference. And this summer, I've come to think about it in a new way. I think what gives life meaning is generously offering one's gifts, whatever they may be. And I found for myself that this subtle shift in framing is really helpful and kind of liberating, right? It's a lot less pressure, less arrogance. It's a little less narcissism, right? Not how can I make a difference, but what can I offer? What can I contribute? It avoids resulting, right? Focusing on the outcome, which is not in my control, and instead focusing on what is in my control. Because we may or may not ever succeed in our efforts to change anything. Sometimes the gift offered is not accepted or not the way we want it to be. The giving is nevertheless meaningful, right? The offering is complete when it's offered. It also, and I think this is really important, it relates to the world. It allows me to relate to the world not as something broken or lacking, in need of my repair, but as something I love, to which I want to give generously. It moves me out of fear and anger and judgment and sadness and towards appreciation and joy. Right? It's a great way to relate to people too. I don't need to fix you to make a difference in someone's life. I just want to give to you. And relatedly, it allows me to stop fighting against reality and focus instead on working with and accepting what is in that loving way. The world as it is, life as it is, my life as it is. It's so important, right? It's about accepting who we are too. And whatever it is, we have to give. It's helpful, I've found, in the process of aging. Maybe I have more to give than I used to. Maybe I have less to give. Maybe it's just different. Whatever I have, I can offer. And it's about the here and now. What I can offer today, right? Not some future fantasy of a lasting legacy, which is fundamentally unknowable. And if that's my prerequisite to a sense of meaning in my life, of mattering, then I may be very disappointed. But did I offer back what was given to me? If yes, nothing can change that. No one can take that away. And when I say generously offering what I have to give, it's obviously not just or even primarily money and things, right? It's also wisdom and kindness, a sense of humor, love, insight, mentoring, a particular skill, anything. Now, if that's the case, if life is about giving generously of our gifts, one of the most precious and powerful gifts that we can give is the gift of presence, but a very particular kind, face to face. What does it mean to be face to face? And I don't mean not on Zoom, right? One can be face to face on Zoom too. Since we're in a synagogue, we might hear that face to face and our minds go to being made in God's image, right? The verse in Genesis when Jacob encounters his twin brother Esau and says, "Seeing your face is like seeing the face of God. There's a lot to that. And I find helpful in thinking about that, the three dignities that Yitz Greenberg wrote about in his most recent book, that each human being has, inherent in being made in God's image. If you have the green sheet with you, you don't look at it if you don't want to, but if you want to, the text is there. He names three dignities: the dignity of infinite value, the dignity of equality, the dignity of uniqueness. I'll unpack them a little bit later today. But to be face to face is to recognize those things in the other. And to go a little deeper, there's the teaching of Emmanuel Levinas on the significance of the face. Levinas, a 20th century French philosopher, Jewish philosopher, had a lot to say about the face. And as I said last night, his writing is very opaque and difficult. What you are about to hear is Jan informed by Levinas. I can't guarantee that what I'm about to say is really what he meant. And I'm relying on some third-party interpretations of him. But he sort of begins with the image of God too, but without the explicit God language. What he says is that there is an intuition of the sacred in the face of the other. There is something about a face that is different from anything else we encounter, right? Think about what vegans sometimes say, I won't eat anything with a face, right? But especially a human face. There's no better word than holy. And for Levinas, the sacredness of the face is very concrete. The face makes the existence of the other real, not a concept, but a being who we need to relate to as such. Some of you may know the comedian Modi, the Jewish comedian Modi. If you know him, you may have heard his routine that he does about being married to a millennial who is much younger than he is and much better at technical stuff. And he does a joke where he says that his millennial husband says to him, share your location. And he says, I'm right here. Right? It's the right here-ness of the other that Levinas is getting at. Right? We want to know about someone often while avoiding their real presence, being right here. A being, not a concept, may seem obvious, but it's not. It means a real person with a body and needs and feelings and loves and pains. And that has very significant ethical implications, which we'll deal with tomorrow. It also means, among other things, a person right here as a person, not some idea I have of who that person is, or some category or collection of demographics or data set or team that they belong to. Turns out we're not so good at seeing a being, not a concept right now. This is related to what Yitz Greenberg named the dignity of uniqueness. This person isn't some idea in my head I have of them, right? And they're not a projection of me, right? They're their own person. At the same time, for Levinas, to see a face isn't actually about straightforward seeing at all. It's not about noticing someone's cheekbone structure or eye color. It's about taking in the meaning of another, the significance of that face. And one of the primary meanings of the face is that it represents the infinity and ineffability of each individual. The Hebrew word for face, panim, offers two powerful insights. First of all, It's a plural noun. It's a plural noun. Literally, it means faces. Hebrew has no word for face in the singular. Isn't that striking, right? Because face contains multitudes. No one has only one face. Everyone and everything is multifaceted, and a human face changes all the time. And the second thing is that, like English, panim in Hebrew connotes something external, right? The outer surface, on the face of it, facade. Same thing in Hebrew. But the Hebrew root of panim also refers to our innermost parts. Panimim is the innermost, 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 innermost. So it contains a paradox. The face is simultaneously the outer and the inner. And we have a biblical phrase in Hebrew. It's used in Deuteronomy to describe the relation of God and Israel at Sinai. Panim befanim. Face to face. Except that face to face is usually panim el panim. This is panim befanim. And the ba suggests within. So what it really kind of means is at Sinai we stood faces within faces within faces within faces. An infinite journey into ever more profound depths. I've been reading this summer some of the work of Andrea Gibson, the poet laureate of Colorado who died this summer. They wrote as follows. This year, everyone I know had a broken heart. Everyone I know cried in private on their way home from a party. And this year I stood inside of a redwood tree and thought, this is the sweetest day of my whole life. And 2 months later was sobbing in a parking lot thinking, this is the worst day of my whole life. And a few months later I was dancing in my living room saying, this is the best day of my whole life. Have you ever seen the seed of a redwood tree? So tiny. And all of that everything inside of it. All of this everything inside of us. So what's implied by the face being infinite is that it's also ineffable. It's impossible to fully know the meaning of another face. To be face to face is then a kind of mini revelation of infinity and ultimate unknowability. And it requires a willingness to look deep beneath the surface to the panimim, the inner parts. It evokes, demands humility, awe in the presence of another person, and also generosity. Here's Andrea Gibson again. Science just proved that an atom can exist in two places at one time. And I believe people are not always only at the scene of their crimes. Even the worst of us, I trust, are often also somewhere holy, somewhere kind. To come back to where I began, the meaning of life as the generous offering of our gifts. Now we have a better understanding of the gift of presence. To reflect to another their existence and significance. To see in their face the intuition of the sacred, their infinity, their ineffability. To see them as a being, independent of our own perceptions and ideas and categories. So take a moment before we daven Musaf and turn to Hineni, which is about presence, to think of a time when someone faced you that way, fully present, deeply, lovingly, listening, gazing as though they saw not right through you, but into the depths of you and you. Not a reflection of themselves or a role in their lives. And in their gaze, they affirmed that your deepest self is valuable, lovable, and loved. Holy. How did it feel? I think this is one of the things we most yearn for, to be deeply seen and valued. We have an attention economy. We are selling our attention to advertisers. And as a result, we suffer from a massive presence deficit. Too many of us aren't really present in the face-to-face way we're talking about. And too many of us are never fully seen. That face-to-face gaze is one of the most healing, loving things we can ever give another human being. And we all have it to give, though we may need to develop our capacity for it. It's the real meaning of the word hineni. Abraham and Moses' relation to God, and in the Yom Kippur Haftarah, God's relation to us. And I believe it has the power to heal our world.